Welcome back, everybody. Third time's a charm. Matt, you were saying something about your internet and being paranoid and unresolved things that we need to cover that we started we were the last two episodes.
Yeah, we were talking just now. My internet crapped out yet again. And we were discussing whether we should just end it there. And I know myself, and I would be frustrated all day long if I just let an interview just end in a with a fumble. You know, it's like it's like you're running a race
without
and then
a conclusion. Yeah.
Before the finish line, you just you trip on your shoelaces and then you're like, I'm going to go home now. It's like, no, you're going to get up and you're going to finish the race. Who does that? so
right.
We're going to just I guess try to wrap up our thoughts a little bit. But the thing that I really wanted to just finish up on as an idea to close it around was what you raised on the Falun Gong thing. Because if you get at the end of the day, there's an obsession. It's part of the religious doctrine of the Falun Gong that your organs are sacred. Again, very much like Jehovah's Witnesses. Li Hongji is somebody who, as I mentioned, promotes, and this is believed by all of his devotees, that he has telepathic skills, healing just by thought. He is a superhuman force, a supernatural force, because he is an agency of sort of a neo-messianic, very pagan
God complex
worldview. Oh, he's got a God complex to the extreme. He believes that he is the cause of or the center of an intergalactic, interdimensional battle, and the oligarchy has had communion with these aliens from other dimensions who are evil, and have their interfacing with these aliens has given rise to technological progress. The Industrial Revolution is caused by aliens talking to the elite evil vampires, and everything that because Li Hongji ultimately in his sermons and in his website, he runs the New Tang Dynasty. This is what owns Epoch Times, for example. He lives on a 400-acre compound in New York State, protected by the CIA after he got exiled from China. That's where he went. The CIA was like, yeah, come here. We'll give you a 400-acre compound. He's a multi-billionaire with, who has thousands of different educational organizations, news outlets. I mentioned Epoch Times, cultural things like anyway, there's so many things. Part of it, though, is that these the members, they're attracted by going into qigong. They do qigong exercises, breathing, balancing your qi. It's an ancient exercise, but then it's infused with this other weird shit, made into something different. And it primarily targets Westerners, but a lot of expat Chinese are members of this thing. Now, the reason why the Chinese want to eat they just love Falun Gong, because it's it's only the Falun Gong who seem to be complaining about their organs being harvested by the Chinese CPC big bad villains. Well, it's because the Chinese CPC in the Li Hongji worldview have been working with the aliens, and because Li Hongji is the most perfect being who has made his little cult in his own image, that the Falun Gong practitioners, by balancing their qi and organizing their golden section body parts and internal organs along the lines of the best spiritual energy of the world through his practices and following him, they have the juiciest, highest quality golden section organs in the world, which is why the alien CPC wants their organs so badly. The point is, these people are insane. They're driven nuts. It's a cult. It's a psychology cult for the Chinese, synthetically created by intelligence agencies who still give them protection.
Are you sure they have nothing to do with David Icke?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's sort of a hodgepodge of a variety of these alien tropes. They just put into a stew and gave it to this guy. It's weird, but yeah. At the end of the day, it's really that they've got a religion of the organs, and so they're nuts, and they're used by intelligence agencies to cook up anti-Chinese information, which is then picked up by think tanks that are usually funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, like Safeguard Defenders, or there's a variety of these think tanks. The World Uyghur Congress is another NED-funded operation, but that one caters more to the poor Uyghurs that we've killed, or that the Chinese have hurt so badly. but there's never any evidence. When you scratch on the claims, the very extravagant claims, and look for, well, where's the hard evidence to anything that either is being said about the Chinese genocide on the Uyghurs or against the Falun Gong organ harvesting, there's never anything but anecdotal statements. And that's it. It's just, there's no evidence. So it's obviously useful to have people believing in this stuff, because it helps to weaponize the otherwise conservative members of the Western population who would normally be thinking like Donald Trump was, which is like, well, how do we organize against the oncoming collapse and the oligarchy that wants to kill us, by looking for solutions which might and would probably involve, as Donald Trump was doing with his China-US trade deal, working with China as a collaborator and partner in global development and cooperation, instead of killing us, and instead of reducing the world population, which is why Trump was such a threat, because he was working to create bridges with Russia, with China, even with Iran, who he had to speak in a very ugly way about. Even Iran, he had a back channel discussion going, which allowed for him to avoid getting sucked into a war with Iran in January of 2020, when Soleimani was assassinated by U.S. military systems. And, Trump had to own it. He had to own it because it's kind of like a statement of weakness
US
to say, yeah,
military systems. You sound German. Yeah. You sound German right there. Like they're not German tanks, they're Ukrainian tanks. No, what I'm trying to say is that I think you were trying to allude to the fact that there were elements within the US system that did the assassination without
I'm saying
Trump's,
I'm saying that there's an independently operational force managing the Pentagon and the State Department, doing things that were disruptive to the types of policies that Trump was otherwise trying to get online for cooperation, making business deals with China, with Russia, with other countries of the Middle East, that would very often be undermined by forces representing the U.S. government. So again, he created a back channel with the Iranian embassy, or with the Iranian government through the Swiss embassy in Tehran, using an old school, like old-fashioned phone line that was tied directly to the Oval Office, that bypassed the State Department, and that he was on the line with for over like 8 hours to de-escalate the situation and to create a solution that would involve no World War III. So all that to say, there's an effort to weaponize the masses who would normally be supporting Trump or supporting Kennedy currently, and get them to see that the actual water that would be necessary to put out the fire in the house, because our house is on fire, and a lot of people are just waking up to that fact now, but the water to put it out involves working with China and the Belt and Road and Russia as our allies, which people are being blinded to. So they're being intellectually castrated to see the water is actually your enemy, and you should be afraid of water, and stay in your burning house instead. Which is,
you know how they turned out the oil fires in Kuwait, yeah?
No,
Canadian specialists were brought in, oil rig specialists who used explosives,
really?
starving it of oxygen, so they were fighting it with fire, basically.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a new factoid I didn't know about.
Yeah, I'm full of useless factoids. Like, share, and subscribe. No, seriously, the point is, I see what you're saying about being blinded. It's like we were talking about in the first or second or both recordings, that people are being polarized. Like they see everything as black or white, whereas in reality, like the U.S. as a system or as a country or as whatever it is multiple personality disorder, to say the least.
Yes, exactly. No, it's multiple person. There's not one single. That's been sort of the theme, right? Don't oversimplify. People try to treat the U.S. as if there's just this one thing called USA. There's this one thing called China, one thing called Iran, and it's like, no, there's things are nuanced. There's multiple different voices vying for dominance within so many of these different civilizations, and it's only when we start looking at the context of what shapes historical forces that we can start appreciating where are the battle lines, like where are the sane forces that are sober, where are the insane drunk idiots who are useful fifth columnists, and where are the, so you can start doing that in various countries you choose to point your analysis to, and then make sense of, well, what would be a strategy that could bring about sobriety and put out the fires, and what would be goose eggs, which pathways might look pretty but are a waste of time that won't do anything.
Because I'm known for interrupting and getting people off the topic that they actually wanted to talk about, and my subscribers all love me for that. Haha, hee hee. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. In the first one, we were talking about the multipolar alliance being controlled opposition. Is there anything you'd like to round up on that topic before we move on to the counter argument?
No, I mean, I guess, again, I would just say, for those who are entertaining the idea that all players are controlled opposition, that there's no actual authentic resistance to the big murderous death call of humanity that some have identified has been animating the agenda of the oligarchy. I just say, look at what nations do in physical economic terms, which you could then see are these processes in the real world that I'm measuring that are in alignment with the mandate of oligarchs to keep us underpopulated, dumbed down, fighting each other, divided to be conquered, devoid of our historical traditions, right? Is that what's happening? Or do we see an opposing set of activities or effects happening by the policies economically of nations who you think might be controlled opposition? And I would say, if you take that as your litmus test and apply it to what China is doing, what Russia is doing, you will find maybe not a perfect set of angels and good guys, but you will find something which is in antagonism to systems of oligarchism, which is a historical process that goes back thousands of years of men being manipulated by self-professed masters of a higher hereditary class of elites who are just better than us because their caste has better blood or better organs or whatever, that are not tainted by the impure, low-bred humans that they want to cull.
Speaking of castes, what do you make of India banning, and you mentioned countries doing stuff. What do you make of India banning the export of rice? As like...
I mean, I think that they're looking at a coming storm. The supply chain's breaking down internationally, and I think that they're currently making a decision. I don't think that they should be necessarily doing it the way they're doing it, but I think they're freaked out and they're trying to create as much food security as possible for the coming likely breakdown of the system, which is going to involve a lot of annihilated food production systems.
Yeah, putting it lightly. Do you want me to bring up this piece of news? Saudi Arabia to host Ukraine peace talks, and how Saudi Arabia's and Turkey, for that matter, these peace talks are to be held without Russia, and 40 countries or something like that, but without Russia. Is that Saudi Arabia being an Erdogan and like playing both sides and like trying to be the good guy by being the bad guy? Because they're obviously on the BRICS side of things, aren't they? I mean, Saudi Arabia is.
Well, yeah, but it's like they've vectored towards the east and towards the BRICS. That's good, thank God. But it's like they're still a highly compromised state.
Occupied. I think occupied is the word.
They have a weak. I mean, but moral. I mean, there's huge pillars of cultish, corruption, and just these Wahhabite different networks that were put to work for decades, sponsoring radical ISIS and Al Qaeda connected jihadi groups all over the world. I mean, Saudi Arabia was used as a tool in a kit, an imperial kit, for decades and decades. And you could say since the British Empire created Saudi Arabia as a synthetic nation back in the 1930s and installed the current dynasty on the throne, from one of many Bedouin tribes. They just picked one that was loyal to the British Empire, installed them because they did good business with the British, and used them. And there's been very few. I mean, during the time of Gamal Nasser of Egypt, there was a rebellion within some of the more moral princes of Saudi Arabia who wanted to go with Nasser's program for vast industrial development of Southwest Asia and North Africa. That didn't turn out. Ultimately, that was subverted. But there hasn't been too many of those kinds of examples of like the better Saudi Arabia, which is like sane and moral. Very few examples have emerged over the last century. But what we're seeing right now is something I think really good and authentic, that there's a small network that gained a lot of prominence based on a pragmatic need to not be destroyed in a decarbonized post Great Reset age where carbon-based economies
pragmatic need to not be destroyed. That reminds me of one of the comments on one of your first appearances where they said you gave a masterclass in Canadian politeness.
Well, it is what it is. I mean, sometimes, we just not wanting to die.
It is what it is. It is what it is. That's where we're at. That's good. We're getting to the top. What can I say? Is there anything else that you would like to tell the viewers and myself about what's going on in Canada? Because like last big headlines that have come from Canada is that all those truckers and the Hong Kong stuff, and then like Canada went off the radar. I mean, other than like your foreign appearances of your prime minister and other administrators.
Let's do this. Let's save that for a future talk, because I'm not really that motivated right now to talk about Canada. I want to end it on a high note. So.
All right. So what's a high note for you? What's something that there used to be this thing on YouTube. I don't know if it still exists. It doesn't come up on my feed. Like I can't remember who it was, but it was like a good news next week segment. I think it was that other Canadian guy in Japan. What's his name? Doesn't matter. Corbett, there you go. Corbett report with somebody else, somebody with a beard, and they used to do a good news next week type of segment where like they'd finish off with something positive that's going on in the world. So what's something positive that you'd like to finish off? I mean, other than the fact that Prigozhin was seen in the St. Petersburg conference.
Well, that actually is where my mind went. I mean, that is it. Because up until now, like Joaquin was like, a mutual friend of ours who has a great Telegram channel was one of the few people in the earliest to really point out that what we were being shown as far as this Wagner coup was really a game within a game. And it's true. Like when you look at the amount of anomalies that could only be explained properly and reasonably by recognizing that it was a game within a game, did it all make sense? And I mean, but still to this very day, those of us who have held to that view that the thing was a bit of a psyop, in many ways, in a very, very brilliant one, to restation Wagner in a strategically important location in Belarus, while at the same time doing some important things in Africa too, under the veil of this like traitor trying to rally the anti-Putinists of Russia to overthrow him and install something more workable for Western oligarchs. This is there's been a lot of people who have refused to believe this, and they want to believe what their sense perceptions tell them. And it's because Putin has said that this was an authentic coup. It must be an authentic coup. He
didn't say that. That's the thing. He didn't say that.
Well,
he on the day and on the day after, like his two speeches, like the first speech, he didn't even say Wagner, let alone Prigozhin. He said the ones who are responsible for betraying us will be punished, like he was very, very specific with a lot of his words. And when Lukashenko shows up to St. Petersburg before this Africa summit and tells Putin in front of the cameras that Prigozhin and the Wagners want to go on an expedition to Warsaw.
Yeah, that was brilliant. It's all just so brilliant. I love it.
And they're all
So
like
yeah,
laughing on stage, and people are taking it seriously. It's just
I know it's wild. It's really funny but people just need to loosen up a little bit. I think and just like see the humor in things. They're too rigid. But yeah, then you see like Prigozhin all of a sudden, participating in the Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg, doing deals. And, Wagner is obviously playing a very important role in Mali as well as in Niger, and which is all of a sudden
conspiracy
gone
theories.
Well,
Theories, I tell you.
yeah, and now the U.S. military bases are like being told to shut down from Niger. France is being like kicked out. You got to obviously you got something very important, and Niger is a key role. Keep calm and wait for the Russians. Niger is obviously a key strategic zone for resources, uranium, so much else that would be important not just for the Eurasian economies, but for Africa as a whole. Since Africa really, we are seeing a revival of Pan-Africanism in a very potent, positive way. With the current configuration of leaders right now, who are being organized by Russia, by China, even by some of the Gulf states who are helping to maintain areas of stability. I mean, even in Sudan, which under normal, if it was a decade ago, I'm sure Sudan would have already been lit on fire, but they've been able to keep that from going to complete hell, even though there's there's signs of Western manipulators all over the place. Same thing for Ethiopia,
and
which
biolabs.
And biolabs, yeah, it's a whole other can of worms. Yeah. I mean, Africa is replete with these things, right? U.S. military systems and biolabs are all over Africa. So the fact that we're seeing like a real pushback now and an alternative alliance being created around large-scale development, it's fantastic. And it's ironically the best of what the U.S. was when it was still sober is what we're seeing revived in a completely new package with the Pan-Africanism of like Kwame Nkrumah, who was the father of modern Pan-Africanism in many ways, was studying in the United States, investigating how Hamiltonian economics applied to Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal was able to transform a backwater South that was underdeveloped of Tennessee.
When was the U.S. sober last?
Probably with JFK, I would say there was a gasp for breath, and then it was pushed back underground or underwater after that. And Americans were told to just adapt to living underwater as your new identity. And things have been breaking down more and more every decade as people are on more antidepressants, more drugs, not understanding why they're so fucking depressed and nihilistic. And it's like, well, it's because you've been told you're something that you're not. And so, you've been told you're this consumer society of complacent plebes who are supposed to just like, be happy with the world, despite the fact that the world's going to shit because your whole economic system has become dependent upon keeping people, poor and abused and at war in order to satisfy your dollaramas. Like, of course, that is unnatural. And like Martin Luther King Jr. had said, for those who are trying to pressure us to be to be socially well-adjusted, they don't realize that that's immoral. To be socially well-adjusted to an evil world, it means that you're becoming evil. You should be proud of being socially maladjusted to an evil system. That's a good thing. It's a sign that your soul isn't dead. So be proud of your social maladjustment. All that to say, yeah, I mean, that's Africa has finally got a real hope to get back to its true ancient heritage of being a beautiful ancient, powerhouse civilization, or I mean, Africa is many things, but I mean, the point is you have a Pan-African idea.
Africa is huge, first of all.
So big, right? You can take all of America and Europe and China and India and stick it all in Africa and still have space left over. But there's I think right now a real idea that this is going to be a springboard for global future development for humanity, and it's largely it wouldn't be the case. There would be no hope were it not for Russia and China together working. Also for the Middle East as well, which actually has a hope for real reconstruction and peace because of the presence of Russia and China over the past 8 years, especially. So whether we have the moral fitness to survive or not depends on whether or not we choose to see this as a good thing or give our consent as idiot cheerleaders to go to war with them. That remains to be seen.
So where do you think the good news is? What do you think In the past week, let's say, has other than Prigozhin at the Africa summit and Russia's involvement and freedom in Africa, like anything closer to home, looks like good news on the local front.
This week has been. Look, I think Seymour Hersh wrote something that I thought was good recently, where he made a point. And Seymour Hersh has got a lot of insider connections. He's in his 80s, but this guy is, everybody should know Seymour Hersh, but he put out an article and he made a point that his contacts within the Democratic Party establishment are really afraid of the likelihood of a Trump-Kennedy alliance of some sort. Since Kennedy the Democratic Party is never going to let Kennedy get anywhere near representing it. So he's going to be iced out, though what he's doing right now is useful for what it is. The question is,
what do you mean iced out?
Of the Democratic Party of having I'm hoping that he's got damn good security. I know that he was complaining recently that he asked the White House to supply him the security detail of the Secret Service that is supposed to be provided to every presidential candidate, and he was denied. But in hindsight, that's maybe not a bad thing, because I think the murder of a lot of these presidents was made possible by the Secret Service participating, right? So he shouldn't be too unhappy about that.
Maybe he should get Trump's security, yeah.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe Trump could give him a loan or a little detail. But that being said, I know that Trump did invite Robert Kennedy Jr. to be on his vaccine safety task force back in 2017. So he's open and willing to work with Kennedy. Kennedy has put on like a "I'm never going to work with Trump" face, but that might easily be just theater. Mm-hmm. I don't know. The fact that the Seymour Hersh contacts have made a point that they're all very, very concerned about that possibility. They don't want that. That gives me some hope. And it also shows me why the lawfare being waged against Trump right now is a sign not of strength by the deep state, but rather weakness. They're really petrified of what Trump does represent. So that's something. That's something good. But I can't give people the old-fashioned good news like they might have craved. I can't do QAnon or Brixanon.
Brixanon. Yes, Brixanon is what I don't want to say we are, but what we've coined. Let's put it that way. All right, we've gone for 27 minutes. Should we call it a recording here before the internet lords take it away from you?
Yeah, let's keep it safe. Let's do that.
All right. We've covered almost everything we wanted to cover. Everyone who stuck around, thank you. Don't forget to check out the links that I'll put in the description to Matt's stuff and to the Buy Me a Coffee stuff. Matt, thank you for stopping by. Everyone, thank you for sticking around to the end, all through the technical difficulties of the last two episodes and whatnot. But yeah, see you later, everyone.